Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm Tony Perkins, your host. The website is tonyperkins.com. So good to have you with us on this Wednesday afternoon. Earlier today, the Senate Judiciary Committee held a hearing on protecting America's children from gun violence. Now, during this committee hearing, Chairman Dick Durbin said, quote, gun violence is traumatizing an entire generation of kids, and that we need to treat this like the public health crisis it is. Considering how the left has been pushing transgenderism on children and how Democrats handled COVID-19, how wary should we be of the approach that Democrats are taking on the issue of guns? Is this really about stopping violence, or is this about controlling guns and who has them? Joining me now to talk about this is Congressman Greg Steube. He is a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Judiciary Committee. He represents the 17th Congressional District of Florida. Greg, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, before I get into the gun control issue, I know this is something you're passionate about because you've been leading out on protecting women's sports. The latest, coming from the USDA saying they're going to take away lunches from schools, from children in schools, if they don't change their policies as it pertains to gender and sex. I mean, I was just talking about this in the previous segment. I know this is something you're passionate about. I don't know if you're tracking with that or not, but how goes it on the battle to protect women's sports?
Well, we're over 185 signatures on the discharge petition. We're going to keep working that. My hope is to get every Republican on there. So if you're a Republican member of Congress, if you're watching this and you look online and your Republican member of Congress has not signed that discharge petition, that simply would not allow a biological man to compete in women's athletics at the collegiate and high school level, you should encourage them to do that. My goal is to get all the Republicans on there and try to start working the Democrats. If we can get the 218 members of the House to force a vote on the floor. But it's this administration is weaponizing their agencies. Like you're talking about the USDA, the DOJ is doing the same thing. The FBI is doing the same thing, is weaponizing their agencies for their far left agenda and trying to force it on the American people. And they're using force to do that.
So let's talk about the issue of that's being discussed, the gun control issue. Because in the backdrop of this is that we've had over 40 incidents of violence against pro-life pregnancy resource centers, pro-life organizations, and churches since the leak of the Dobbs opinion. And the administration is doing nothing, but yet they want to disarm law-abiding citizens.
We have a completely politicized Department of Justice that cares nothing about the current laws on the books, that doesn't allow you to try to protest outside of justices' homes and get them to change their minds on an upcoming piece of court action. The law's already on the books. This DOJ and this Attorney General are refusing to enforce it, despite the fact that Republicans are telling them there's already a law that protects these judges and you're not doing anything about it. This is all about their agenda, and their agenda is to take firearms from law-abiding citizens. There's no underlying other issue here. If you look at the amount of deaths that we've had in America due to overdoses on fentanyl, It is the leading cause of death between those age of 18 and 45. Yet they're doing nothing to stop that. They're doing nothing to stop the overrunning of the border. They want open borders. If they genuinely cared about the health and safety of Americans and Americans dying, we would be doing things like that and shutting down our border and stopping the number one cause of death for that age demographic.
All right. So, Congressman Steube, the Senate is really the driver now on this issue of what they call gun-related violence in our schools. What, in your opinion, needs to come out of these, come out of the Senate in terms of their bipartisan negotiations?
Well, what should come out of there is let's not make gun-free zones that are a target for lunatics and crazy people in our country, where they know that there are people there that do not have firearms to defend themselves. And let's put armed, trained individuals in all of these places. These mass shooters don't go to a gun shop or a pawn shop or an airport or other places where they know that there's law enforcement that's armed, that there's concealed permit weapon carriers that are armed to be able to defend themselves. I authored a bill when I was in the state legislature that would allow for former and current law enforcement and former current military to go through a training program to volunteer to be with our school safety officers and school resource officers in our school. That's the type of thing that we should be doing, not creating gun-free zones that is a target for lunatics, but allow those people to be able to defend themselves, not taking the rights away from law-abiding citizens.
And Congressman Steube, you've also addressed the underlying issue here when you look at these angry young men who are disproportionately the ones that are committing these heinous acts. The moral implosion that we see in our country, the breakup of the family, that's not being discussed by the Democrats.
No, I led my House floor debate with that. Some recent statistics out from the Christian Today about the mass majority of these 75% of your mass shooters in recent history, all from fatherless homes. Large majority of those that are rapists, large majority of those that commit violent crime, large majority of those that are in juvenile detention, all from fatherless homes. Why aren't we talking about the fact that we've taken God out of our schools, that we have an epidemic in our country of fatherless children, and providing these children with role models, providing these children with people they can look up to, and not encouraging them to commit violence? And that's what's going on in our country. That is the real moral dystopia that we have in our country right now, that the majority wants to talk nothing about. They want to use that as a reason to take every law-abiding citizen's gun away.
Congressman Greg Steube, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you for bringing those issues up on the House floor. We need to absolutely talk about those issues and I think force the Democrats to talk about what they don't want to talk about. And that is they've kicked God out of our schools. They've removed prayer. And now we have total chaos.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me.
All right. Congressman Greg Steube of Florida. You know, I do want to